Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Battlecry Gamer, and Wizards were fine before. The thumbnail was mostly just more of like a retort to another thumbnail about a similar type of video that also is just an ongoing conversation in the Pathfinder community. Wizards don't do enough single target damage, so wizards are bad and marshals are good. I ranted so much in the last video, I'm really just not going to get into it in this one. Wizards are fine. If you can't do math and if you are only playing combats with like 3 enemies, then like there's no helping you. It is what it is. But I actually do think War Mage is going to fix Wizard, at least in the perception of people who are playing the game. War Mage is actually a very interesting class archetype, and so let's go ahead and just get into it because I am actually very impressed by this one design wise. So like most or any class archetype, you pick this at level 1. To be a war mage, you must be a wizard, and it changes a lot about wizards. Now, the biggest things it really changes is there's no arcane thesis, which is huge, and there's no arcane bonds, though you get arcane bonds through a feat later on in the archetype. So those are the biggest ones. And special mention as well, you become trained in light and medium armor, and your armor expertises actually go up earlier than they did before at 11th level rather than 13th level. So now unarmored, light, and medium armor all go up at 11th level, which is really, really cool. It makes the wizard a lot more defensive. And speaking on defensive, you also gain shield block as a general feat. Honestly, shield block, I love it so much, but it feels like Paizo is just handing it out like candy nowadays. I mean, I'm not going to be upset. I think casters should just use a shield because it just makes them a lot safer, especially in the early game. So I'm glad to see it here. And you also treat martial weapons as simple weapons for the sake of proficiency. So you can play an actual melee mage if you really want to. Is it going to be optimal? No, but you can do it, and it's really, really good, actually. And in addition to all this, you gain War Magic. War Magic is as a free action that can be taken once per round at the start of your turn. You can exchange any spell you currently have memorized for Sure Strike, heightened to the same level as a replaced spell. As normal, you can cast most spells while wielding a weapon in your hands. Duh, I don't know why they mention it here. I guess it's just a reminder. And you can refocus by studying plans of war, maps of troop movement, and reports from the field for an active conflict in lieu of studying your spellbook. I like the narrative part, but I really don't think they needed to waste text space here on that. It's still cool nonetheless. I appreciate the narrative implement added, but people don't really care, honestly, when you're playing the game, what you're actually doing when you're refocusing. It's a thing that literally no one cares about. So War Magic is really cool. You can swap in Sure Strike at any time, and Sure Strike is actually going to be really good for the wizard here because it allows you to go melee with your new martial proficiency if you really want to, because honestly, I gotta say, using a spell slot to just almost guarantee, or not guarantee, but to get a much better chance of hitting with a melee weapon is really good. Honestly, advantage or, roll twice, take the better result is just very, very good. But it also works on any attack action. So if you have any spells specifically that have attack rolls, then this works for that as well. It's really, really good. So overall, just based at level 1, you're way tankier than you were before with heavier armor proficiencies. You have shield block, which is insanely good, and there's really no reason not to use a shield because you are a wizard and you don't need to use anything else. And heck, you can even have a weapon and a shield at the same time and still cast magic. It's really good. In older editions of the game, you needed to fight for stuff like that, and you're just getting that all at level 1. And the fact that your armor proficiency goes up at the same rate that other martials do mostly is really cool as well. So I really, really like war magic, and for all intents and purposes, wizards are a really easy class to like use heavier armors for, because you can just put points into dex or strength just to wear the armor, and you're only focused on your intelligence anyway. So as long as your intelligence is maxed, you're good to go. It also makes it really easy to get heavy armor proficiency if you want to archetype in addition to, doing this. So I think the War Mage at the beginning, already really cool and already really good. And I'm going to expect a lot of people to really be dipping into war magic. Oh, and I guess I also forgot to mention as well, but your school of magic that you start with has to be battle magic. A lot of people were taking battle magic anyway, so there's really no big deal here, but you do have to take it. Now, like all other class archetypes, you do need to take their dedication feat at level 2 non-negotiable. So what does it give you? When you deal damage with a non-cantrip spell in an area, choose a number of targets equal to your intelligence modifier, which is going to be pretty high. Starting at level 1 is going to be probably 4, right? So that's 4 targets. That's honestly, you'd be lucky to hit an area spell that hit 4 targets. Anyway, so for those who failed, and they must have failed their saving throw against the effect, you can move each one of these targets up to 10 feet from their original position after they take damage in all other effects from the spell. So you can't cause them to do some kind of weird spell kind of synergy thing, but still repositioning enemies is insanely good. Now, obviously, you can't move these creatures through obstacles, and I really do like a different kind of ruling they do here, because it's not just creatures like 1 for 1. Creatures of different sizes require different amounts of creatures to be moved, So a medium or smaller creature counts as 1 target. A large creature counts as 2 target. A huge creature counts as 4, and you can't move gargantuan creatures in this way, which makes a lot of sense. You also gain the additional lore general feat for warfare lore, which is really cool because that just means warfare lore is going to improve with you as you level. You don't need to put any of your skill increases into it. And if you're already trained in warfare lore, then you just become trained in a different lore skill. That doesn't mean that other lore skill gains the benefits of additional lore. It just means that your warfare lore is going to be increasing, but you don't waste a skill increase or putting a point into warfare lore early in the game, So honestly, really good. I really like how the dedication feat gives you an insane combat feature. It's focused on area spells specifically, and enemies, of course, failing their saving throws. But most of what Wizards' like overall offensive capacity on the battlefield is based on area spells. The fact that Wizard and most spellcasters can just do damage to multiple enemies at once makes much of their damage multiplicative, which means the more enemies you hit, the more overall damage you're doing. And oftentimes, if you're hitting 3 or more enemies, you're doing more damage than a martial typically does. It's just math. And I like how War Mage is kind of making players really choose to focus on the area effect spells, because that's the offensive abilities of wizards and such. It's really good, and repositioning enemies in this way is insanely tactical. So it makes smart players happy because they get to reposition enemies. It makes the more, big number players happy because now they are hitting multiple enemies. They're focusing on that aspect more, and they're like, oh man, I'm actually doing a lot of damage, huh? So yes, you are. As long as your combats have like 5 or more enemies, it's very easy to get 3 enemies into an area blast. It's just very simple. And I love how warfare lore is an automatic skill progression. I think most classes should have something like this, and the fact that War Mage gives it 4 warfare lore is really, really cool. Now, after the dedication feat, we do get a choice of feats at level 4, and Mage's field dressing is insanely cool. I really, really like this feat. I want to see more of this from Paizo. I mean, Paizo already has a lot of banger content, don't get me wrong, but this is just really cool. So, what's it do? Well, first of all, you need to have battle medicine as a skill feat. That's not too hard to do, but, you do need it. And, of course, you also need to be practicing medicine as well. So, something to keep in mind. But All this requires is that your previous action was to cast a spell from a wizard spell slot specifically, so no archetype spell slots, and this spell affected an ally within 60 feet. So it has to affect an ally, and it has to be a wizard spell slot. I love the fact that it doesn't mention it has to be a beneficial spell, so you could hit an ally with like a fireball and be like, oops, sorry, let me use battle medicine on you, because what this does is you use battle medicine on one ally affected by the required spell. You do not need to be holding or wearing healer's toolkit, as you conjure glowing threads, bandages, or similar supplies out of pure magic, which adds the arcane trait to battle medicine. So I think the intent is you buff an ally and you can heal them at the same time. That's insane for action economy and all kinds of stuff like that, because typically you would have to move up to use battle medicine on them. But I like the fact that this could be like, you could hit an ally with a fireball and then be like, all right, but hey, let me just heal you for that damage you took a little bit at least, which is kind of fun. So Mage's field dressing is really, really cool. It's going to make a lot of interesting interactions, and I think it's going to create some interesting tactics. I'm very curious to see how this one plays out. Gosh, I want to play a wizard now. This is just really cool. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is Shield Spell Reinforcement. Now, Shield Spell Reinforcement was a little disappointing to me, because I was like, oh, the fact that we're wielding a shield, can we layer our shield with the shield cantrip to get like a super shield? No, sadly. So it's a free action that you can take as long as your next action is to cast a shield cantrip. You must be using a shield in order to use this, and essentially what this allows you to do is you can choose for an adjacent ally to gain the benefits of your shield spell instead of yourself. And if an ally would take damage from a physical attack while protected by your shield cantrip, you can use your reaction to shield block with the spell on their behalf. This is not that good, especially because Psychic just has an ability like this that's just better in almost every way. So I wouldn't necessarily take this. If I wanted to do something like this, I would just multi-class Archetype after, picking enough feats into Psychic to do something like this. But it is interesting. I just also, if I'm going to be using a shield as a wizard, I just don't see myself preparing the shield cantrip as one of my 5 cantrips. I prepare something else. I think this is interesting. I think it's pretty cool. I don't know. Maybe this has some interesting implications. I'd have to look into it more. Interesting implications if you go multi-class Archetype into the Psychic, and maybe there's some really cool ways to use this, but honestly, I don't know. Shield Spell Reinforcement just wasn't quite what I was hoping for. I was hoping for the ability to increase, like, if we raise our shield, we could also spend a spell slot to use, or not a spell slot, but if we could use like a focus point or something to amp it with the shield cantrip to give that temporary like additional power to a block. But it is what it is. Next up, we have Siege Ritualist. This is really cool, and this goes into the Siege Ritual spells added in this book. That's going to be in a different video, but just know that they're really, really cool. So you become a specialist in Siege Ritual spells. When you attempt a Warfare lore check as one of the casters of a ritual, you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to the check. I also really like this idea. I like the idea of using a skill that we're really good at because of our class in a ritual. We get a special bonus to it. That's something I'd like to see more in ritual type stuff, rather than just a bonus to rituals in general. And you also learn a siege ritual of 2nd rank or lower, though you still must meet all the prerequisites to be a primary caster of a ritual to select it. And at 8th level and every 4 levels after that, so 8, 12, 16, and 20, you learn another siege ritual with the same restrictions and with a maximum rank of half that level. So essentially you can learn 5, right? Let's see, 4, 8, 12, 16, 5 ritual spells for free, 4 feat choice that you get a bonus to casting. And I think this is really cool. I think in certain types of campaigns, when you are going to be going up against a massive amount of enemies or even like troops or stuff like that, I think Siege Ritualist is really good. I would still be very hard-pressed not to take Mage's field dressing, but if you didn't want to go down the battle medicine route anyway, then yeah, I think Siege Ritualist would probably be the next best pick because, again, Shield Spell Reinforcement is just not that good. And the Siege spells are really, really cool. Next up, we got a really cool feat, Arcana of Iron. I love the name. It's super metal. And this does require that you have Bespell Strikes as another feat choice that you picked from Wizard normally. So if you didn't like anything at level 4 here, that would be a really good pickup. And now it's just all focused on weapons. You become trained in advanced weapons, though that's probably not the reason why I would select this. And if you gain weapon expertise, the weapon expertise class feature, which is really weird wording, and this kind of came up before. I questioned the wording of something in Guardian, but the thing is, this is now the class archetype that this wording doesn't make sense. So again, weird wording. We will gain weapon expertise class feature. It's not if, when you gain would be a better wording. The weapon expertise class feature, your proficiency in martial and advanced weapons increases to expert. The extra damage you deal with Bespell Strikes increases to a D8. This is all really cool. So now we get access to advanced weapons and they become expert when we become expert with everything else. And when we're using Bespell Strikes, so if you're going a battle mage, that it's really good. Like, honestly, melee mage is super plausible with the war magic class feature we get, right? Where you can just at any time swap in Sure Strike. So you can have as many Sure Strikes as you want. You cast it, then you cast Bespell Strikes to do extra damage with a weapon that you're now insanely more accurate with. And now we can use advanced weapons, which are really good. And our Bespell Strikes essentially gains an additional feature where we can deal D8s rather than D6s. So just extra damage, extra accuracy. Going full battle mage is really, really good. So if you want to go melee wizard, we now have a really, really good route for you to take, and you can do it by level 6. It's really good. Yes, you're statistically not going to be as accurate most of the time, or at least not without a lot of expenditure. But again, I would say Sure Strikes really does kind of even that battlefield. And considering the next feat I'm about to talk about, this becomes a lot better. So the next feat is Intimidating Spell. This is an insanely good spell shape. I was going to say meta magic. Spell shape because, 3 action casting a fireball. Now, in addition to fireball's other effects, if for enemies that fail their save, they become frightened 1. If they crit fail that save, they become frightened 2. Now, don't forget, as a part of our War Mage dedication, we also get to reposition those enemies within 10 feet of their original position. So you, with the single fireball, granted it's all your actions, but still, fireball has massive range. You can hit a bunch of enemies, deal a good amount of damage, and apply fear to them, and reposition them to be in much more disadvantageous positions. Is insanely good. And if any of the enemies crit fail, then by the time your turn comes around next turn, you're going to have an enemy who is now frightened 1 at the very least that you can hit much more accurately. This is all insanely good. And I gotta say as well, if you're working with your teammates, your war mage who is probably on the front lines can just flank enemies with your allies and kind of just reduce their AC by 2, giving you essentially the same accuracy as if they weren't flanked that a martial normally would have. So we have so many different ways. If you want to play a melee mage, this is now the best class archetype to take. Next up at level 8, we have Shielding Formation. This gives us the Shielding Formation focus spell, which is pretty cool. So with this 2-action spell, we create a 30-foot emanation that we can sustain up to a minute, in which we project a giant magical shield. You and each of your allies within this area gain a +1 circumstance bonus to their AC until they leave the emanation or the spell ends, whichever comes first. Now, if an ally takes physical damage specifically, or damage from a spell or magical effect while being granted this bonus, they can choose to end the bonus for themselves to get as a free action, not a reaction, as a free action, to gain 10 resistance to all damage against the triggering damage. If they do, then they are temporarily immune to the effects of shield formation for 10 minutes. And as well, if you take this effect, you can't cast shield formation for 10 minutes, though you can continue sustaining the benefits for others. So a free action, essentially shield block that reduces 10 damage from spells and physical alike is insanely good. And 30-foot emanation is a massive area. Considering how we're already going to be playing the War Mage, this is really good. Like, Paizo, please, I have so many characters I want to play, and this just looks so good. It just seems really, really cool. I want to play it so bad. Anyway, it's really, really cool. And considering sustaining this is the only hard part because we have so many, like, for instance, intimidating spell, we just can't use most of the time while we're using shielding formation. So that's kind of a bad thing. But there's a lot of situations where shielding formation might really work. And especially if you're just going a pure melee mage anyway, then I think that this is like the perfect spell to take. Also, at level 8, we get Spell Shield. Now, this is the Arcane Bond feature I mentioned before, though this does mean we don't get Arcane Bond essentially until level 8, and that's if we select a feat to do so. So something to keep in mind, but I really think this feature is very interesting. So you gain the Arcane Bond class feature and the Drain Bonded Item action. You must select a shield as your bonded item, not going to be a problem for us. And when you make your daily preparations, you can prepare one fewer wizard spell to infuse that magic into your bonded item. This spell must be at least one rank lower than your highest rank wizard spell slot you have. And when you use Drain on your bonded item to cast a spell, that spell is automatically heightened to the rank of the spell you infused into your shield, no matter what rank you originally prepared it at. So not only do we gain, the bonded item feature, but now we have an additional effect that allows us to essentially heighten a spell that we recast. Now, this is really interesting because while losing that spell slot does mean that we might lose some versatility in our spell casting, the fact that it automatically heightens the spell we use with Drain Bonded Item means that we can use something like a Fireball at its base spell rank of 3 and just cast it at a higher level if we deem the need to use it again. So it allows us to use lower level spells that we may have prepared at higher spell ranks, and this is also really good for anti-magic kind of stuff because counterspelling you is based mostly on the spell rank of the spell, right? So if we know an enemy is going to counterspell us, we can use a lower level spell essentially at a higher spell rank in order to make that spell harder to counter. So Spell Shield is very interesting. It's very in-depth, and it's between it and shield formation, it's very, very interesting. I feel like Spell Shield is just going to be a little complicated for a lot of people to really grasp the benefit of it, especially because essentially you're just going to, you can either just use the feature at base, which is pretty good, or sacrifice a spell that it's just one less spell you're going to cast that day. Like normally the bonded item or Drain Bonded Item would give us an additional spell. But now we are losing a spell to heighten a spell, maybe. So Spell Shield is very, very interesting. Then we have Secrets of Steel. As your prowess with weapons increases, so does the ferocity of your magic you channel through your weapons. When you use Bespell Strikes, you gain access to the critical specialization effect of the chosen weapon or unarmed attack used to make the strike. If you critically hit with this modified Bespell Strike, you deal an additional D8 damage of the same type as Bespell Strikes. This damage is added after calculations and is not multiplied during critical hits. So essentially, Secrets of Steel gives our Bespell Strikes essentially the deadly trait, which is really, really cool. And it gives us the critical specialization effects for our weapons, though I will say I like this, and if you're going down the pure like spell sword kind of route, this is probably a feat to take. But if you're not, there's so many prerequisites to make this feat good. You need to use Bespell Strikes essentially, and then you need to get a crit, which you're already not very likely to do unless you're using Sure Strike. So it's something where, again, I think there's going to be like this kind of meta for War Mages of Sure Strike weapon attack and going down the Bespell Strike route, which I think is going to be good. But then, you know, you kind of lose a lot of the benefits of being a wizard, which is your spell variety, because you're going to be spending so many spell slots on sheer striking. It is what it is. I like Secrets of Steel. I think is really cool, but I think it kind of takes away from the idea that War Mage is very much based on like area damage, or I think that's its major feature, considering the dedication focuses on that, and intimidating spell just makes any area spells we do that much better. So I like it. And I think Paizo's delivering exactly what people have been asking for forever, which is a wizard who can hit people, because no one wanted to play Magus, I guess. I don't know. People have been asking for this. It's the thing. It is a thing. It is what it is. All right, and then the last feat we have here is Battlefield Arcana. Now, this does require that you have steady spellcasting. Steady spellcasting is probably one of the least taken feats. I'll show it here, but essentially what happens is if a reaction of some type would disrupt a spell you're casting, you can roll a DC 15 flat check to attempt to prevent your spell from being disrupted. Most people don't take this because if you're a wizard being like reactive strike, you're just poor positioning usually, and a 1 in 4 chance is just really not a good use of a feat in my opinion. But if you decide to take this, you get Battlefield Arcana, which is really good, because what it does is if your next action is to cast a wizard cantrip or wizard spell that is at least 2 ranks lower than the highest rank wizard spell slot you have, the spell does not trigger reactions that normally triggered due to a spell being cast or someone using an action with the manipulate trait. So Battlefield Arcana is potentially really, really good. Now, my gripe with it overall is, one, steady spellcasting is just such not a good feat. I never want to take it, and even with this feat in the game, I still really don't want to take it. It just... So up until this point, I just have a 1 in 4 chance when I'm getting disrupted to not get disrupted. That doesn't sound super good. And it's a spell shape, so it takes an extra action. So, and the ironic thing about this is because it takes an extra action, you kind of, the very benefit that this is providing you just negates the need for steady spellcasting, because you're not going to be reactively struck and to not get disrupted, more or less. I would love to have seen something like this just be an earlier feat and be like a focus spell, right? 1 action, focus spell shape. Focus spell shape. Do we even have focus spell shapes? That's a really good point. I think focus spell shapes would be a really interesting design choice. But, you know, focus spell shape that makes it where you can cast in combat a lot easier. So it's very expensive, but because you're fighting on the front line and because there's not many other focus points we're really going to be using, I feel like that would be a really good feat, and I would be more likely to take that than I would Battlefield Arcana. I think Battlefield Arcana is okay. I think if you went steady spellcasting for whatever reason, then this is a very natural pickup. But this is also a level 12 feat. So yeah, I don't know. I like it. I like the idea of it. I think something like this would work for characters in some way. It feels like a really good feat that requires me to select a really bad feat in order to get it. And that just doesn't feel good, you know? So I don't know. That's just my opinion. But hey, that's it for the War Mage. I actually legitimately think they fixed Wizard here by more or less giving players more incentive to play Wizard in the way it's overall designed. Or at the very least, by giving people exactly what they've been wanting forever, which is, I want to be a sword-using wizard. I want to be Gandalf. Well, you know what? Now you can. And it's actually pretty good. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I think this is really good. I'm also going to be covering the other archetypes in the book. The next one, I'm just going to spoil now which one I'm going to cover because I think it's really, really cool, is the Necrologist. A super cool kind of necromancer build. I think that's really, really interesting. So if you are interested in that, subscribe to the channel, check it out. And as well, if you want to help support the channel, you can check out my link down in the description for Into the AM. I love these shirts. I've had this shirt for pretty close to a year now, getting like just a couple months off. The graphic still looks really good and it hasn't shrunk at all. They have a really killer deal where if you use my discount code down in the description, you can get 3 graphic tees for less than $20 each. It's a really good deal. And I know someone did this deal like twice just the other day because I get notifications on my phone whenever someone like uses my code. So I know people are really enjoying it and I want to pass this off to you guys. And I forgot this again, but I should have mentioned this earlier. Paizo did send me Battlecry for the sake of review, but obviously my thoughts here are my own and they're not paying for this particular video. They just gave me the book to just do whatever I want with it. So yeah. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Give the bad luck to me, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.